Hello everybody and welcome back to a brand new video on the channel, guys. So what I have for you guys today is another episode of our championship score predictions, guys. So this is now week 30 of our championship score predictions, and first of all, just thank God championship football is back this weekend, because of course last week we did have a break from the championship football thanks to an international break, and honestly international breaks just completely drain me. It is just, it's nothing compared to the championship. I don't know what you guys think, but leave a like on this video if you are glad to see the championship returning this weekend, guys. And we actually have some very interesting fixtures to go ahead and talk over for this weekend, guys. But before we get into that, let me briefly explain how the series works. So every week, guys, I give you my championship score predictions for what I think the results will be with each individual game going on in the championship. FIFA 17 also makes their predictions, but what I'm really interested to know is what you guys have to say. So in the description down below, I will leave all the fixtures that are taking place this weekend, and I want you guys to go ahead and make your score predictions. And then if you do successfully manage to predict any of the scorelines taking place this weekend, I will include your comment at the start of the next video, guys. So without further ado, like I said, we have some pretty interesting fixtures to talk over. Let's just get straight into it. So first of all, guys, we have the game which is taking place tonight on Friday night, guys. We have the game going on between Derby County and Queen's Park Rangers, and this is actually quite an interesting encounter, really, because obviously this will be Gary Rowett's first home game in charge of Derby County. So for that reason, you would expect really the home crowd to be up for this game. You'd expect a good atmosphere to be generated from that, I suppose, more optimism being created around Derby now. But they are coming up against this QPR side who, going into the international break, actually went into it on a very nice run of form. They put together some really nice passages of play lately, QPR, and they've been playing some very nice football. So what I found interesting as well about this one is that Derby County are currently sat 10th in the table and QPR are sat 15th in the table. However, there's only 3 points separating the two seed teams, so that just goes to show more than anything how close of a league the championship really is. But in terms of this game, it could go either way, really. I'm going to go ahead and say this one will end as a 1-1 draw. I think it could be a good game though. FIFA saying it'll be a 2-0 Derby win. And then going into our next game, guys, we have Barnsley who are coming up against Sheffield Wednesday. So we have a Yorkshire derby taking place for this one. This is the early kickoff taking place on Saturday, and once again this should be a very lively affair to say the least, and I'm expecting quite a few things from this match. I think it could be a very interesting one to say the least, but with this one I do find it quite difficult to go ahead and separate these two teams. On paper you'd say that Sheffield Wednesday have the better side, however when you're talking about leads and character, I think Barnsley make up for it in that sort of aspect. And how controversial would this game be if someone like Sam Winnell scored the winner for Sheffield Wednesday? That would be on another level of controversial, and then if he celebrated in front of the Barnsley fans, that would just be mental if that happened. But for this one, I'm going to go ahead and back another draw for this one, actually, but I'll say this one will end as a 2-2 draw. I think quite a few goals could be scored in this one, but it's a difficult one to separate, especially in a local derby. FIFA, however, is going to back a 1-0 home victory. And then going into our next game, guys, we have Aston Villa who are coming up against Norwich City, and this is actually quite an interesting encounter as these two sides do come up against each other. I'd say really neither of them have anything to play for anymore. Norwich have the slimmest of chances of reaching into the playoffs, but I'd say really even the most optimistic of Norwich City fans probably will say that's a step too far at this point in time. But these two sides are coming up against each other. Of course, last season this will have been a Premier League fixture, and it's a difficult one, really. If I was to fancy anyone, I'd probably back an Aston Villa victory for this one, really, because going into this game, going into the international break, I should say, Aston Villa were actually in a very nice run of form. Jonathan Codger looked to be back to his best as well. So for this one, I'm going to go ahead and back a 2-1 home victory for Aston Villa, whereas FIFA's saying it'll be a 2-0 Villa victory. And then going into our next game, guys, we have Brentford who are coming up against Bristol City, and this is actually once again a really interesting encounter taking place at Brentford, guys. So of course Bristol City still have everything to play for, you know. They are right down in that picture of the relegation battle at this point in time. However, really the international break came at the wrong point for Bristol City, because obviously going into it they got that incredible victory over Huddersfield Town last time out. So really the international break did come at the wrong time for Bristol City, and you know, if Bristol City are able to emulate the way they played in that match from now until the end of the season, they'll be absolutely fine and clear from relegation. But do I think that that's possible? I don't. I think if they were capable of playing like that all season, then they will have done that, if that makes sense. It's just Bristol City's inconsistencies really have caught up to them this season, and it's a shame to see, really, because they do have a very talented group of players. So going up against this team against Brentford, who on their day are capable of taking anyone down in this league. You know, they've got a lot of quality, Brentford, especially going forward. So for this game, I'm going to go ahead and back a 1-0 Brentford victory. I actually see this one being quite a low scorer of a game, whereas FIFA is going to say it'll be a 0-0 draw. And then going into our next game, guys, we have Brighton, who are coming up against Blackburn Rovers. So, of course, both of these sides actually really need the points more than anything at this point in time. Of course, Brighton still are being chased down by Huddersfield for the automatic spots, and Blackburn Rovers just really need some victories now to go ahead and get out of the relegation zone. However, it must be said, you know, I think a shout out has to be given to Blackburn Rovers, and the work that Tony Mowbray has been able to do in such a short period of time, really, I think that has gone a bit unnoticed, really, in terms of the rest of the Football League, because they're currently unbeaten under Tony Mowbray, and they've put in a very decent run of form lately. It's just the fact that they're getting a few too many draws at this point in time when they need to be turning those into victories if they are going to escape relegation. And they're coming up against this Brighton side who, you know, on their day are able to dismantle any side in the Championship, and it's a difficult brawl. Brighton should win this game, but I've just got that feeling that Blackburn will take this to the last minute. So I'm going to go ahead and back a 2-1 home victory for Brighton, but I think Blackburn will make it very difficult for them. FIFA's saying it'll be a 2-0 Brighton win. Then going into our next game, guys, we have Huddersfield Town, who are coming up against Burton Albion. And once again, these are two sides which are both in really desperate needs of go ahead and picking up all 3 points. Of course, Huddersfield will be desperate to put behind the awful performance they had last time out against Bristol City, and they'll be looking to rectify that at home to Burton Albion. Now, Burton Albion's away record this season hasn't really been the greatest, so coming up against this Huddersfield side, who have been quite dominant, really, at home this season, I think it's fair to say, Huddersfield should go out and win this match, but with how they played against Bristol City, that's just looming over the back of my mind. But I think with an international break, they should have been able to put that behind them. The atmosphere at Huddersfield should be booming for this match, so I'm going to go ahead and back a 2-0 Huddersfield victory for this one. I could be wrong, and FIFA's actually going to go ahead and disagree with me. FIFA's going to go ahead and back a Burton victory. Again, guys, we have Ipswich Town, who are coming up against Birmingham City. So going into this one, I'd say that this team is a clash of two sides which have definitely underachieved this season. I mean, both these sides currently are sat 17th and 18th in the table. They're currently both on the same amount of points. So coming up against each other, I don't really see there being too much between them, really. I mean, Birmingham at times this season, we've actually seen them have some decent displays lately. However, we've also seen them have some absolutely shambolic performances under Zola, whereas Ipswich have been, I'd say that they've been playing to a consistent level, but it's been a consistently average level for Ipswich this season, and that's really been seen with how many draws Ipswich have come out with so far this season. So for this match, I don't think it'll be any different, actually. I'm going to go ahead and back a 1-1 draw for this game, whereas FIFA's saying it'll be a bore 0-0 draw. Then going into our next game, guys, we have Newcastle United, who are coming up against Wigan Athletic. So once again, not too long ago, actually, this would have been a Premier League fixture, but these two sides are coming up against each other this weekend at Newcastle. So going into this one, I mean, this should be a home banker, really. It should be a guaranteed nailed-on Newcastle victory for this one, but at times this season, Newcastle have made it difficult for themselves, but they're coming up against this Wigan side who, I mean, if Wigan are able to escape from the relegation zone and survive this season, that would be one of the greatest comebacks we've seen in the Championship, really. But honestly, I can't see it. I mean, if they were to turn it around, this really would be a signal of things to come, a statement of intent from Wigan Athletic. But honestly, I can't see them doing that. They've, of course, got a caretaker manager going into this game as well, so I'm just not sure where the Wigan players' heads will be at in this game. So I'm going to go ahead and back a 2-0 victory for Newcastle. I think it should be quite a comfortable one for them in the end, whereas FIFA's saying it'll be a 3-1 win to Newcastle. Then for our next game, guys, we have my club Preston North End, who are coming up against Nottingham Forest. So once again, quite an interesting encounter, actually, where a point really wouldn't really suit either of these sides. I mean, Preston are still chasing down the playoffs with a slim outside hope of getting in there, and Nottingham Forest, of course, are in desperate need of picking up all 3 points because they've, of course, been dragged into this relegation scrap at this point in the season. So going over Preston's home form in 2017, it's actually been very good. Preston are currently unbeaten in 2017 at home in the league, so that's a really good omen for Preston coming into this one. Coming up against this Nottingham Forest side, who, of course, it was Matt Warburton's first game he had before the international break against Derby. They, of course, drew that match. So going up against this one against Preston away, This will be a difficult one for Forest, I imagine, but I do see this one being quite a closely contested match. I see this one as well being quite an end-to-end game because both sides really do need to win this match. So for this one, I'm going to go ahead with Preston's decent home record this year. I'm going to go ahead and back a 2-1 victory for Preston North End, whereas FIFA's saying it'll be a 0-0 draw. Then going into our next game, guys, we have Rotherham United, who are coming up against Fulham. So, of course, Fulham lately have missed quite a few opportunities to go ahead and get into that top 6. But, I mean, talk about opportunities. Fulham have to win this match. This just has to be a guaranteed 3 points for Fulham. If Fulham don't come away with 3 points from this match, no disrespect to Rotherham, of course, but with the way Fulham have been playing so far this season, this should be a guaranteed 3 points for them chasing down the playoffs this season. But with how crazy the Championship is, I wouldn't even be that surprised if Rotherham went ahead and like won 3-2 in this game or something like that, something crazy like that. But for this one, with Fulham going forward this season, they've been very good, especially, you know, they're going forward. Their front line has been their starlet so far this season, and Rotherham's defence has just been so suspect. They've conceded the most goals in the Championship this season, so I expect quite a few goals to be scored for Fulham in this game. So I'm going to go ahead and back a 3-0 victory for Fulham, and FIFA's actually going to agree with me for this one. And then going into our next game, guys, we have Wolves, who are coming up against Cardiff City. So, of course, once again, the international break came really at the wrong time for Wolves. I mean, going into the international break, they'd actually won 3 games on the bounce, which, you know, for Wolves is incredibly respectable, you know, with a torrid season like they've had this season. And that has done really well in padding them out just above that relegation zone. And, however, they are coming up against this Cardiff side who, once again, they've been probably a consistent performer this season, especially under Neil Warnock. I mean, at the start of the season, they really were underachieving, but ever since Neil Warnock has come in, Cardiff have been an incredibly tough team to go up and play against. Away from home, they've not been the best this season. However, I just feel like with the international break coming at the wrong time for Wolves, I feel like the roles could be a bit reversed for this game, and I'm actually going to go ahead and back a 2-1 victory for Cardiff in this one. I mean, if this game was to take place and there was no international break, I'd be backing Wolves for the victory, but I think that could have perhaps disrupted them a little bit, disrupted the flow they had going for this season. I could be talking absolute nonsense, really, but I'm going to go ahead and back a 2-1 Cardiff victory nevertheless. FIFA saying it'll be a 0-0 draw. And then for our last fixture, guys, taking place the evening kickoff on Saturday, we have a massive game taking place in the race for the top 6, guys. We have Reading, who are coming up against Leeds United, and oh my, I honestly don't know which way to call this one. This is a massive game going on, guys, because we've got to remember, really, either of these sides could go on a really bad run from now until the end of the season, and really either of them could go ahead and slip out of the playoffs. So when the teams like this do come up against each other and play each other, sides in the top 6, it's pivotal that one of them goes ahead and takes full advantage. I think at this point in time, Reading are just 2 points behind Leeds. Reading currently on 67 points, Leeds on 69. So this one is a really interesting one. I know there's been a couple of shots fired actually from the managers back and forth between Gary Monk and Jaap Stam. So leave in the comments down below what you've made of all that drama going on. But in terms of talking about the actual football going into this one, I can't split it. I think if both sides do turn up to this match, which, I mean, they should do. I mean, you can't get much bigger motivations going into a game than this. So I'm going to go ahead and back a 1-1 draw. I just can't figure out which way this one's going to go. I mean, on their day, they're both capable of playing some absolutely fantastic football. They've both got danger men that the other sides have to be aware of, and I think they could cancel each other out. So I'm going to go ahead and say it will be a 1-1 draw, and FIFA's actually agree with me. So there you have it, guys. That will wrap it up for this video, my Week 30 Championship score predictions, guys. So if you have enjoyed this video, make sure you go ahead and leave a like. It is always massively appreciated. As well as that, make sure you subscribe for regular Championship content. Make sure you get your score predictions in the comments down below. I'd be very interested to know what you guys think will happen this weekend, guys. But apart from that, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.